هناك محاولات لدفع البلاد إلى هاوية التدهور.
نهار الخميس كونوا الصبح بمراكزكم.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tanim and these are today's top stories. The cabinet fails to reach an agreement over the methodology it should adopt in conducting its affairs, raising fears of the emergence of paralysis in the government. Dar al-Fatwa set the date to elect a new mufti for Lebanon to August the 31st. And Iraq's parliament fails to reach a quorum, preventing it from voting on a request to announce a state of emergency to deal with a major jihadist offensive. The cabinet has held its third session after the expiry of President Michel Sleiman's term in May the 25th to end the row over cabinet powers in the wake of a presidential vacuum, as well as the impact of the Iraq crisis on Lebanon. Salam presided over the meeting held at the Grand Sarai in downtown Beirut with 25 ordinary items on the agenda. Despite Salam's hopes to keep the presidential vacuum away from the government, ministers remain divided on how to take decisions and how to sign decrees. Sources at the Grand Sarai say Salam appeared to have secured a positive climate for the meeting, where ministers discussed the premier's proposal in parallel with the agenda. The sources said this seemed to be a compromise between the March 8, whose ministers wanted to discuss and agree on a cabinet mechanism of action before moving to the agenda, and March 14 ministers who sought to discuss but not approve the prerogatives of the premier or the agenda items. Meanwhile, contract professors at the Lebanese University have held a sit-in outside the Grand Sarai to coincide with the cabinet meeting. The protesters threatened to continue boycotting the exams as well as the test corrections until their demands, which include promoting contract lecturers and making them full-time workers, are met. Justice Minister Ashraf Rifi said on Twitter shortly before the cabinet session got underway that ministers will discuss the mechanism for passing decrees in parallel with the agenda. In the absence of a president, many ministers insist that the cabinet is only entitled to pass resolutions on issues of critical national interest, such as declaring war, signing international treaties, or passing a budget. The resolutions must also have the support of two-thirds of ministers. Dar al-Fatwa set the date to elect a new mufti for Lebanon to August the 31st. Director General of Islamic Endowments Sheikh Hisham Khalifa said the election will take place at Dar al-Fatwa headquarters in Beirut. He said if two-thirds quorum of the Muslim Electoral Council were not secured in the first round, the session will be adjourned until 11 a.m. the same day, and the sheikh who gets an absolute majority would win. Grand Mufti Sheikh Mohammed Rashid Kabani issued a decision on Saturday to expand the electoral body that picks his successor from more than 100 members to around 2,800. He justified the move by pointing out that this was the size of the electoral body from 1955 until he was elected Mufti. The Higher Islamic Council will convene under former Minister Ammar Miskawi to consider calling on Kabani to leave his post early in response to the controversial expansion. Since the end of 2012, disputes between Kabani and Saad Hariri's Future movement have split the council into two. One part is chaired by Miskawi and is considered to be close to the Future movement, while the other is headed by Kabani himself. Each of the councils considers the other illegitimate. The military examining magistrate has asked for the death penalty against scores of Palestinians who are on the run for belonging to terrorist organizations. The national news agency says Judge Fadi Sawan issued his indictment against the 31 Palestinians, accusing them of belonging to Abdullah Azzam brigades and Al-Qaeda. Sawan also accused them of committing murder, attempted murder and robbery at gunpoint during the clashes that took place in the Miya Palestinian refugee camp on April the 4th. 8 people were reportedly killed and 10 others were wounded in the gun battles. Al-Qaeda affiliate Al-Nusra Front has killed a Syrian and kidnapped 2 others during an attack on refugees in the eastern Bekaa Valley. The national news agency says gunmen from the terrorist group opened fire on an encampment of refugees in the Wadi Hamid area of the border town of Arsal. 1 person was killed and another was injured. At least 7 people have been killed when a car bomb exploded in the central Syrian city of Homs. The blast was reported by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which says the neighborhood is majority Alawite. In May, Syrian government forces retook control of almost all of Homs, once dubbed the capital of the revolution, after a deal following the withdrawal of rebel fighters trapped under siege. Alawite districts and areas under regime controls in Homs have come under attack, including with car bombs in recent weeks. Hollywood actress Angelina Jolie has hosted a screening of her 2011 directorial debut in The Land of Blood and Honey as part of the world's first summit on ending sexual violence in conflict in London. The film was set against the backdrop of the Bosnian War, but Jolie used the screening's platform to draw attention to the crisis in Syria. Check it out.
I also hope that when you watch this film, you think about Syria. It seems unthinkable that nearly 20 years after the siege of Sarajevo, we see Syrian cities like Homs and Aleppo besieged and bombarded, that 9 million Syrians have been driven from their homes, and nearly 3 million refugees are in neighboring countries, all bearing stories of murder, starvation, and rape. And it does feel at the moment that the international community has given up on trying to restart negotiations. But our response to such desperate humanitarian suffering can never be to give up. We have to find a way to get back to the peace process in Syria and stop the bloodshed. So indeed, the message of this whole summit is that with vision and determination, and by bringing the right people together, like all of us, we can overcome immense problems. And so I hope that that same spirit can be brought to bear around the world, and especially in Syria and Iraq.
And coming up next, we'll give you a glimpse of the atmosphere in Brazil as the World Cup kicks off tonight. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Iraq's parliament has failed to reach a quorum, preventing it from voting on a request to announce a state of emergency to deal with a major jihadist offensive. A senior government official says only 128 of 325 MPs attended. The emergency session, which had been announced 2 days before, was then cancelled. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki and the President's office submitted a request for Parliament to declare a state of emergency on Tuesday as jihadists overrun swaths of territory. The Jihadist Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant Group has spearheaded a major offensive that began on Monday night and has since overrun a full province, major parts of 2 more, and 3 villages in the 4th. Iraq's security forces have so far failed to halt the offensive. A suicide car bomb has exploded at a police station in Libya's second city, Benghazi, leaving the bomber dead and at least 1 police officer wounded. A security official says there were a number of casualties in the attack, which took place at the Bursis post on yesterday evening. 1 police officer was injured in the attack, which happened when a suicide bomber drove a refrigerated lorry, which he exploded upon arrival at the post. And now for news around the world. In brief, at least 5 Congolese soldiers have been killed in a gun battle between soldiers from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwandan forces on their volatile border. The fighting reportedly began in northeast of the provincial capital, Goma, after Rwandan troops crossed the border into DRC's restive province of North Kivu and abducted a Congolese soldier. A court in the southern port city of Karachi has ordered Pakistan's government to lift a travel ban on former military ruler Pervez Musharraf in 15 days' time. Musharraf has been battling several court cases since he returned to Pakistan last year to fight national elections. In March, a court charged him with treason for imposing emergency rule in 2007, stoking tensions between civilian authorities and the powerful military. Ground staff at Rio de Janeiro's airports plan to stage a 24-hour partial strike the day Brazil hosts the opening match of the Football World Cup. The workers pledged to maintain 80% service, but the strike will raise fears of delays as thousands of football fans descend on the city around the opening match in São Paulo and the first game in Rio on Sunday.
Hola, hola. La 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 la.
Well, speaking of the World Cup, the long-awaited event kicks off today with the opening match between the host nation and Croatia. People in Brazil and around the world prepare in enthusiasm for the start of the tournament. Check it out.
People from all over the world prepare themselves for the start of the 2014 World Cup. The opening match will be preceded by a ceremony in Sao Paulo that pays tribute to nature, people and football. On that note, people from different regions land in Brazil to take part in the Fan Fest throughout the entire tournament. With hours to go before the start of the World Cup, fans gather together for the Fan Fest on Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro. Watching the Brazil-Croatia match on the beach is the only way to be in the thick of the World Cup for some fans.
We had tickets for the England and Trinidad Tobago game, but the Fan Fest was actually better atmosphere and a better time than the actual game was itself. So the Fan Fest is definitely the place to be if it's the same as what it was in Germany, definitely.
Estoy nervioso y estoy bastante ansioso y no puedo dormir esperando el...
Plenty of others prefer to avoid all the stress and watch the games in the comfort of their homes. Alice Moura runs an innovative website in which subscribers for a fee can borrow local friends all over the world. To book a Brazilian friend to watch the World Cup together might be a better experience than to watch the matches alone.
So someone who would rent a friend to watch the game will experience the Brazilian way of watching the game with Brazilians and where Brazilians will actually be rather than the tourist mess in the city.
This year, quarrels between fans, teams and consultation about a goal will not be needed with the use of goal control. According to official estimates, FIFA is paying a small German startup nearly $3.5 million to operate its new goal line technology. Goal Control have installed 14 cameras in each of the 12 World Cup stadiums that triangulate the motion of the ball with maximum precision, up to 500 images per second. With tracking and sensors on the goal line, Goal Control can instantly alert a referee when the ball crosses the line. There's no need to consult a replay booth or another official. The referee in charge merely looks at their smartwatch. In other words, say ciao to ghost goals in Brazil. The cameras are connected to a powerful image processing computer system which tracks the movement of all objects on the pitch and filters out the players, referees, and all disturbing objects. If the system registers that the ball has crossed the goal line, it can send a vibration and a visual goal signal to referees' watches within a second. The month-long tournament sees 32 nations compete for a place in the final in Rio on July the 13th. The host nation has never lost their opening World Cup game, with the previous 20 opening games producing 14 victories and 6 draws for the hosts. The World Cup is a non-political event that replaces conflicts for people all over the world. Football lovers get to experience the enthusiasm and love for a team rather than fight over religion, race, or politics.
Bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The cabinet fails to reach an agreement over the methodology it should adopt in conducting its affairs, raising fears of the emergence of paralysis in the government. That al-Fatwa set the date to elect a new mufti for Lebanon to August 31st. And Iraq's parliament fails to reach a quorum, preventing it from voting on a request to announce a state of emergency to deal with a major jihadist offensive. Those are your top stories for today. Catch us again tomorrow at the same time for more updates. Take care.
هناك محاولات لدفع البلاد إلى هاوية التدهور.
نهار الخميس كونوا الصبح بمراكزكم.